What is up? It's Whitney Bro. And as you can tell from the title, we're going to be getting into it today with this episode of Talking Shit with Wit. If you don't like hearing other people's opinions, if the creator mentioned in the title you're like a super fan of and in denial about what's going on, please leave the video. Don't even leave a comment. I'm not going to agree with you. You're going to be wasting your breath. Cool. That being said, we're going to go ahead and jump into the video, and I figured it was fitting to use that person's product because this is coming from someone who was a long time fan of hers. I don't know exactly what eye look we're going to do because these are very different. I think I might just use this one, though, to be honest. And the irritating thing is that these are really good palettes. But once I get into it, if you haven't heard about this, or you, for whatever reason, my video is the first time you're hearing of this, I'm sorry. So to get started, we're going to use one of these two while we're talking about it. And the point of me doing this is so I can illustrate the fact that I've been a longtime fan of hers. I'm not someone who is just jumping on this bandwagon to try to quote unquote bring her down. This is someone who I loved, I actually have two of these. The other one I was going to do in a giveaway, but it just never panned out. And now I'm stuck with it because who's going to want that palette? Anyway. But I'm using the Milani eyeshadow primer because I decided to go with the ColourPop palette. And my Milani primer tends to work the best with the ColourPop formula. I unfollowed Kristi when she refused to acknowledge that she was supporting James Charles and his brand when he admittedly has had inappropriate contact with minors, and there's distinct evidence of it, not even like a paper trail, but videos. And anyway, it was very frustrating at the time because she got called out by Peter Mon and said, he basically called her on her shit and said, you're not going to sit here and act like you care so much about people harming children, and then because it's teenage boys with James Charles, all of a sudden you don't have a stance on that and you don't care. If you're going to be vocal about Colleen Ballinger and you're going to be vocal about the lady who had her kids locked up in the basement, I'll put her name on the screen because I do not know that lady, the eight something. Anyway, but she made videos about all of those things. And so it just seems very disingenuous that someone who, in their own words, has described themselves as a predator, and for her to continue to support that person and not address her audience. Fast forward, she is now under fire because of her choices in regards to her son. Not necessarily like homeschooling, but she apparently has an entire homeschool co-op that she's going to be hosting on her property. And this homeschool co-op is tied to an organization that is very anti-LGBT, and they have this slogan called "Don't Mess with Our Kids," which is very irritating because it implies that the mere existence of the LGBT community is harming children, which couldn't be further from the truth. And instead of addressing it, she's come out with a video talking about how she's going to plan her stepsister's wedding to her fiance, which, mind you, the stepsister we've never heard of. She's never mentioned this person before, ever. And never even mentioned she would have had like a situation with her family where she had step siblings and implying a stepmother. She's literally never talked about that. Anyway, not saying she has to, but it's a little weird. That's all I'm saying. And instead of addressing it and saying, I don't believe these things, why is this circulating on the internet? She is basically doing exactly what she did with the James Charles situation and acting like it's not happening. She's not addressing it. And the irritating thing was, before, at least with the James Charles thing, she could lean on the argument of, well, she hasn't uploaded in a while. Why would she all of a sudden upload for this? Which, okay, fine. She can't do that now. If she feels that way and she believes those things, I'm not saying she doesn't have the right to do that, because she 1000% has the right to do that. But we, as her fans, who quite literally are putting money in her pocket, we deserve to know what she stands for and what our money is going towards in regards to that support. And I think it's very trashy. I think it's very shitty of her as both a person and a content creator that she's basically acting like this isn't happening. And this isn't, the James Charles thing mattered, do not get me wrong, because obviously I unfollowed her in regards to it. But this is a step up in regards to severity and the seriousness of the topic. This is several steps up from her following and supporting James Charles. Again, not saying it wasn't important, because it was, but this is more important. And the fact that she is radio silent while posting a daily vlog in August is abhorrent, and quite frankly, it just comes off money hungry, because what else would be stopping you if you don't believe this, or if you do, whatever your opinion is? If you're not being made to it, like, if money's not a factor, why are you doing this or not saying anything, and like allowing things to be said that are either true or not true, but with no confirmation from her? How are we supposed to know? And me personally, I already wasn't supporting her, and I'm definitely not going to go back to supporting her. I had hoped maybe if she made some steps towards kind of doing the right thing in the other situation, you know, that maybe I could have like refollowed her again. But as a longtime fan of hers, it feels very nasty that she cares more about money and sponsorships and all of that than standing for something that's right, in knowing more than likely half of her audience belongs to the LGBTQ community. I really just think the entire situation is disappointing, and I wish she could be a better person about it. It doesn't seem like we're going to get to hear anything from her, because she seems to think that the important thing to do is to keep acting like it's not occurring. That's very disappointing. You guys can feel free to sound off in the comments of how you feel and your opinion on it. Obviously I'm sharing mine, so I'm not opposed to hearing other people's perspectives. And I know it's not a situation that I'm not saying she has to. I'm just saying, why wouldn't she want to? It's shitty of her to go about uploading, go about her regular schedule as though she didn't have her son in a t-shirt that was associated with this group that they took a picture of him and she liked it, which is weird to me because her whole thing was, I don't want my son on social media. And then here's this homeschool co-op that is related to an anti-LGBT organization, I'm assuming for funding of sorts, post a pic full face. It wasn't like him from behind. It was his face with a t-shirt on that said, don't mess with our kids. Again, that same thing I talked about earlier, the implication that queer people are a danger to children. You know, it's disgusting rhetoric. The disgusting laws were used to limit the rights of gay people in this country, and it really wasn't that long ago. There are people who are still alive that had to deal with sodomy laws, that had to deal with anti-LGBTQ legislation. It's only very, very recently that gay people have gotten the rights and the equality that has been so long and hard fought for. So I went ahead and primed off camera because that's not very interesting to watch. The thing about this whole situation that is very disheartening, to say the least, is that she doesn't seem to give a shit. That's the part that's a little mind-boggling to me, is she does not seem to give a fuck. And instead of talking to her audience and respecting her audience as human beings and people with thoughts and feelings and not just bots that follow her every word, it's like she is... I know I'm not doing makeup right now, but that, to get my thought across, I had to take a moment. And literally, I bought this foundation because of her. It's a good foundation, don't get me wrong. It's a little dark, but because the swatches they had online were kind of horrible, to be completely honest. But what I do to mellow this out so it's not so like, what is that? I did it in my last video, but I'm doing it differently right now. But I basically just gloop on some of the e.l.f. And we're going to get to blending. But no, even as a former fan of hers, the way she's handled this entire situation is grotesque. And like I said, it screams that she's money hungry, because what other motivation would there be for you to allow rumors to go around that you're willingly associating with an anti-LGBT group? Or like, was this her way of being like, no, I don't support James Charles. I don't support anybody over there. How is her audience supposed to take any of this? It is very disappointing when you are a longtime fan of someone for them to, I don't know, come out and not at all be the type of person you thought they were. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, because I'm just, quite honestly, like, I just don't have words, because it's so far removed from anything I thought she would stand for that it's like my brain can't process it, because like, what is she doing? You know what I mean? Like, what's the purpose? Because you can't say that you didn't know that was anti-LGBT, you know? And like, it implies that LGBTQIA members are like pedophiles immediately. That's the direct correlation that organization is making, and using that justification to put bills forth, like the limiting transgender bills that have been put forth in several red states. That is that organization's goal, is to take away rights, human rights of the LGBT community. So it's not, this isn't just a, well, she's allowed to believe differently. Of course she's allowed to think different. This is America. She's allowed to have her own opinions and viewpoints and free speech and all of that. And I'm not trying to say she isn't, but my whole point is her audience deserves the respect to know the type of person that they're supporting. They deserve, when we're, and I can say I don't watch her right now, but I know I put money in her pocket. And it's frustrating finding out that your money went to someone like this. In all honesty, it's mainly just sad, because she was someone who I had a lot of respect and admiration and adoration for. She was someone who I kind of looked at as like a beacon of hope in the beauty community, because she seemed so down to earth and real and authentic. And, you know, lying and being shady about what your beliefs are, that's the polar opposite of authentic. And I don't understand how it's not a deal breaker for everyone, because it 100% should be, in my opinion, because this is something very serious that we're talking about right now. We're not talking about her not liking someone because they were rude. You know, we're talking about her being an advocate for this organization to her 1 million subscribers, that is pushing forth this anti-LGBTQ rhetoric and pushing to get laws passed so that gay people have less rights. It's serious. And in this current political climate that we are in, everything is on the table for this election. And the support of people that have these nasty opinions, it isn't just something that you can shrug off or act like isn't occurring. It was bad enough, in my opinion, when she again refused to take any sort of accountability in any situation where she's doing something wrong. The radio silence from her in regards to this has been deafening, because sometimes no response is a response. And she's telling us who she is with everything that's going on right now. Because, again, if she didn't believe it, and she knows that these rumors are going around because people are in her comments asking about them, and they're getting blocked, and they're getting their comments deleted, or their comments are under review so that they never even post publicly. She is aware of this and is making every deliberate decision to not address it, to not have more people talk about it than are already talking about it. And that, to me, tells me that these allegations are true. Because if they weren't, she would come forward and not be standing for having her character slandered. She would come forward and say, listen, I don't know where you guys got that from. I had no idea. That's not at all what I believe. I believe XYZ, you know? So it's really gross, but she's showing how performative and quite honestly fake she's been this entire time. In general, I don't think at this point a response from her can save anything, because it's been too long. And the little side comment about potentially hosting a wedding for someone who is gay, that's not enough. That's not enough to dispel what's being said. If anything, it comes off very tokenism, if you will. Like, I don't do that. Look, it's my gay friend. You know, or stepsister, excuse me, this magical stepsister we've never heard of. I'm sure she exists. No offense to her. She's probably a great person. But it's just weird to me that of all the times to bring up the fact that you had a gay stepsister, magically is when you're being accused of being anti-LGBT, despite never saying anything about this person before in any of your other videos. Weird. It's gross and performative allyship, and I don't know, because she's acted like she's been besties with a lot of gay men, like James Charles, Manny MUA. There are more male creators, but I can't think of them because those are the main two. But they're both very out loud and proud gay. So it's just it's really weird to me, because the only thing I can think of is she's making money off of that organization. They're giving her money to host the school on her property, and she doesn't want to lose that money, so she has to keep up this facade. I don't know. That's part of what my brain hopes, even though that's disgusting, because if you're willing to compromise your own morals for money, you're a piece of shit person anyway, regardless of what you actually believe in, because you should never be willing to compromise who you are and something that important for a paycheck. All in all, I can say that I'm grateful that I spotted her true colors during the James Charles situation, because that clued me in on the type of person that she is. And not even in regards to like following or not following him, in regards to her integrity. And it's shown that for a paycheck, she's willing to compromise that integrity, or she never had it to begin with. You know what I mean? It's saddening, especially as someone who was a very long time fan of hers. I think her audience deserves to be told the truth, whatever way that may be. Like I said, when you're quite literally, like, I'm feeding your child. YouTube is her job and her primary source of income, unless they're selling vegetables from their homestead. But, you know, her supporters that quite literally put food on her table deserve to know who they're supporting and what kind of person they're giving their time, energy, and effort to watching and being a fan of. You know, it's not, she's allowed to believe what she wants to believe. Her fans deserve transparency and openness. And right now, that's not anything that Kristi is doing. It's been very disappointing to me. As someone who has always loved and been, you could even argue, a super fan of Kristi's, it's very heartbreaking, to say the least, to watch this unfold in real time. And I know this wasn't the most informative video about it, it's just me talking shit. But if you want to have more in-depth videos of the situation, with the pictures, with the receipts, I will link some of those in my description box, because the evidence is staggering and her lack of response is a response. And, you know, it's another one bites the dust, I guess. There's not that many OG YouTube beauty creators left that haven't completely disregarded or abandoned their audience in the way that she has. And it's gross to know that she views us as a paycheck and as numbers, because if she viewed us as human beings, she would sit down in front of the camera and address everything. I don't think that's going to happen ever, so I'm not holding my breath. Feel free to comment your thoughts below, and thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Talking Shit with Whit. and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.